Hello, my name is Chloe, welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you some recommendations for dystopian books. So if you have not heard until this point, I am co-hosting the Dystopian Readathon hosted by Naomi from Naomi's Library. Rather than rehash all of the details, I will leave my announcement video linked down in the description, as well as Naomi's channel and all of the co-hosts' channels. So what I'm here for today is to recommend you some dystopian books. I am not a massive dystopian reader, but I found that when I do read a dystopian book, I often love it. So I've gone for some classic dystopians that you have probably heard of, down to books that I'm sure you might not have ever actually heard existed. So we're going to start off with what I think were probably the most popular, and we're going to go with Scythe by Neal Shusterman. It has actually been a very long time since I read this book, but I know I rated it 5 stars. This is a society where there is no death, like no accidental death, no death from illnesses. The only way to die is to be gleaned by a professional scythe. We follow our two main characters, teenagers Citra and Rowan, who are chosen as apprentice scythes. That's a lot of difficult sounds. Scythes are given the power to choose who they glean, who they effectively kill, and the method in which they do it. So Citra and Rowan are being trained on how to develop this slightly more brutal part of their personality. As it's a dystopian, there is of course corruption that the two need to overcome, and they are told that one of them is going to be the scythe. The other has to be gleaned by their competitor. I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed Thunderhead, the sequel, and stay tuned for my next dystopian announcement video where I tell you what I'm going to be reading, because spoiler alert, I'm going to read the toll. Next up, an absolute classic, but maybe you haven't seen this cover of it before. We have Divergent by Veronica Roth. I love this book, and I think I was just the perfect age when it came out. So I believe this was first published in 2011. I was literally a teenager, freshly. And I'm sure you've seen the movies, I'm sure you've heard of the book, but this follows Triss, who lives in a society where there are 5 factions. I haven't even looked at the back. Let's see if I can remember these. We have Dauntless, Amity, Candor, Erudite, which I can never say, and the other one, Abnegation. They all have some sort of affinity, some sort of personality trait that makes people want to be in their faction and makes them suited to that faction. So Abnegation are the selfless people, and that is where Triss is born. So she is in that faction until she can make the decision at 16, I think, to choose another faction to go into. You have Amity, who are the helpful, kind people, Erudite, who are the smart, intelligent people, Candor, who encourage the truth and honesty, and Dauntless, who are the brave ones. So Triss, our main character, decides to leave Abnegation behind and move into Dauntless, where she can be brave. Basically, the story follows Triss as she becomes to start knowing herself, and it turns out that being different to others is what's going to get you killed in the Divergent world. So I don't want to say too much more about it. I absolutely love this book with my whole heart. I love the movie. I would just recommend that you read it, please, if you haven't already, which I'm sure you have. Next up, a book that for some reason I no longer own. I think I had a really beat up edition. I want to talk about Ink by Alice Broadway, and I've not looked into this at all before filming, so let's see how good of a job I can do. I absolutely loved Ink. This is a society where once you become an adult and you grow and develop and have life experiences, everything you do in your life is tattooed onto your skin. When you die, your skin is then flayed and turned into a book. When this book is created, it is weighed on scales to determine whether you have been overly good or overly bad in your life. The bad people's books are burnt and they are considered cast out of society, whereas the good people's books are held in family homes, and you can flick through the book and see your great-granddad's arse cheek with a tattoo on it. So this story, we're following our main character, who I'm very sorry, I have forgotten her name. If you know me, that's quite common. Who is starting to choose her profession, what she wants to go into and how she's going to contribute to society. She decides to become, they have a word for it, but essentially a tattooist. She wants to be a tattooist apprentice, and she wants to tattoo the future tattoos onto everyone. Everything gets thrown up in the air a little when she discovers that there could be some corruption in this society, as there always is. But I just genuinely love this book. I felt like it was it felt very real and very possible while also being absolutely horrific, like skin is being flayed into books. It was very interesting and I really enjoyed it. Didn't like the sequel so much, but just read book 1. You can leave it at book 1. Next up, the next one I think you may have heard of is Docile by K.M. Sparrow. This is a very interesting book, in my opinion. I would say it's my favourite book from last year, but I can't quite remember if anything beat it in the end. This is what I mean by saying I don't read much dystopian, but when I do, I love it. So this is about a society where there are the elites who have plenty of money, and then you have the people who have gained some debt in their lives. The way that you can pay off debt in this society is to become a slave, effectively, to sell yourself into service. Well, you're in service, your owner, I guess, can do basically anything to you. And the way to make it easier for yourself to get through it is to take docile, which makes you a docile. This will calm you, mellow you don't really know what's going on. We're following our main character whose family has inherited some debt, and I think they've racked up a little bit extra themselves, and he decides to, instead of his sister feeling the need to go and do the slavery business, he wants to do it himself, and he does not want to take any of the drug. He doesn't want to lose himself as a person. This whole society is so creepy because it feels so real. The person he actually goes to is in the family that created docile, I believe, and he is not too happy with our main character's decision to not take the drug and to completely retain himself as a person. Such a dystopian society, very, very, very odd and scary. And yeah, this one really, really hooked me. It was told so well. I missed a book out of my order, but maybe you haven't heard of this. I don't know how you wouldn't have. Maybe not if you're coming for dystopian recommendations. I'm going to show you The Selection by Kira Cass because I fully stand by this being a dystopian. It's definitely, for me, one I would recommend if you're not really into dystopians, but right now you like romances. This is definitely YA. And it's just something that's really stuck with me. I've reread this book multiple times. We're following a girl called America, and she joins this competition that the whole of the society can join to win the heart of Prince Maxon. It's kind of like The Bachelor. In the society you have different levels, and the number you're given is dependent on like what you do as a job and how respected you are in society. America gets chosen as the girl from her level, and she actually has a kind of love at home, but nothing's able to happen because of the discrepancy in their levels and what that would mean for her, like getting married and starting a family. So she signs up for this effectively competition. And she is fully in the understanding that she's there for like prize money for taking part, and she can go home to her big love instead of competing for the heart of the prince. However, then she meets the prince and all of her plans are thrown up in the air. So this is definitely on the lighter side of dystopian, but it is a dystopian society. We have people separated by their level in society, but we also have a really nice romance. Apologies if we've moved slightly, my camera battery died. How great timing. So now we're moving on to the two where I would be very surprised if you guys have heard of them, and very, very surprised if you'd read them. The first one I want to talk about is The Killables by Gemma Malley. This is such a typical 2012 dystopian. I bet it was published in 2012. Let me check. It actually was. Okay, very typical 2012 dystopian. This is about a society where evil has been eradicated and everybody is ranked on their goodness, like how good they are, from A to D. But if there are signs of evil emerging in a person, they are branded with a K. And nobody really knows what a K means, apart from the fact they go missing and they're never seen again. I think it's kind of obvious from the title of this book what the K might mean, no spoilers. This book follows our main character Evie as she is becoming an adult, again choosing her profession. This is like a standard theme here, and she wants to make sure she has a good rating. She is basically matched to, I want to say his name is Lucas? See, this is when I know I loved a book, because his name is Lucas, I remembered it. She is basically matched to Lucas, who is also, I think they're both A ratings, but she has always been a better friend with his brother Raffi, who is a little bit of a bad boy, and it all starts going downhill when there are talks of him being branded something lesser. It's hard to explain this book without giving away the entire plot, but I genuinely loved it. I read the next two books, which are The System and the Disappearances, then The System, and I didn't like them as much, but I've held on to this book because I know I can continuously read it over and over again, and it's just so much fun. So finally, this one is probably the least dystopian of them all. I say it counts, so I'm saying that you should read it because I absolutely love it. And I'm not going to tell you too much about this book because I feel like it gives the plot away. This is Girls with Sharp Sticks by Suzanne Young. I really like this book. So this book follows Mina, who is a girl at the Innovations Academy. The Innovations Academy takes young girls and trains them to be the perfect wives. Once they've completed their schooling, they are matched off to a male suitor where they will become perfect wife, perfect maid, and just be the perfect woman. They have somebody watching over them called the Guardian, and under their watch they are given a perfectly well-rounded education and become the most obedient girls. But then Mina and her friends start realizing something's not quite right when girls start misbehaving and then they go missing. Some of these girls are coming back completely different with no memory of what happened to them. I genuinely don't want to say anything more about this book. I love it with my whole heart, and I don't think you should do any research before you dive in. If what I've just told you appeals to you, just read it. Do no more research. And I was so shocked, I nearly threw this book across the room. I'm obviously less shocked when I reread the book, but at the time I was so shocked I could have launched it. And I really want that to happen to you too, because it was such a good experience. So there we have it. Those are the dystopian books I'm recommending to you. Some very typical ones in here and some you may never have ever heard of. So I hope I have opened your eyes to something new. If I have and you'd like to read any of the books I talked about, then please do chat to me down in the comments. I would love to hear that from you. But for now, that's all I have time for. So make sure you hang around until the end of the week to see what I'm going to be reading for the Dystopian Readathon. Please do remember to go check out the announcement video if you'd like any more information, and also to see who my lovely co-hosts are. But for now, that's all I have time for. So thank you very much for watching this video. I really do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!